Breaking news next at 11. A massive Orange County fire has scorched more than 4,000 acres, and it is 0% contained.
And the heat rolls on. For how long, we'll tell you coming up.
The compact Lincoln MKC with a healthy sense of exhilaration. A cabin that's a sanctuary. And a lane-keeping system that helps keep you on track, giving you a new perspective. The Lincoln MKC. For a limited time, California residents lease a Lincoln MKC for only $299 a month. Only at your Lincoln dealer.
The only way to predict our future is to create it. As long as we can choose for ourselves, we decide what tomorrow holds. For when it comes to our life, our health, every choice we make matters.
Sky 2 over breaking news, gunfire, chaos, and tragedy in Baldwin Village tonight. 2 people are dead after a strange series of events that began with a car-to-car shooting.
Yeah, this unfolded near the Rancho Cienega Recreation Center near Rodeo Road and West Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard.
And CBS 2's Jeff Nguyen is live on the scene to sort this all out for us. Jeff.
So, Pat and Jeff, there are actually 2 crime scenes tonight, and police officers were at one of them and actually witnessed that car-to-car shooting that you and Jeff had just mentioned. First of all, let me step aside and show you the first crime scene. Right now, police have closed it off because they want to preserve the scene. Now, let's go ahead and kick it up to Sky 2 to give you some perspective on what happened. Here's what we know so far from LAPD and the fire department. Earlier tonight at around 8:30, there was a car-to-car shooting. It happened near Rodeo Road and West MLK. An eyewitness told us that he was looking out of his window when he noticed a police car on patrol. And that's when the car-to-car shooting happened right in front of that patrol car. Take a listen.
I actually saw 2 cars coming by about 15, 20 miles an hour, very slow. There was 2 shots, and then when it got fully in view, there was about 4 more shots directly into the car. I saw a youngster in the far car looking into a car that was closer to me, and I saw him clearly get shot at least 2 or 3 times. I think directly to the face. He slumped over, and then he crashed his vehicle into another vehicle, and they hit a kid in the process who was jaywalking across the street. So there's a dead kid in the street that was jaywalking, and there's a dead kid in the car.
And from there, the LAPD tells us that the police car chased after the car that fired the shots. During the chase, the suspect car struck a bicyclist at the corner of Farmdale and Exposition. That person is in critical condition tonight. Police say that the suspected shooter also got away. Right now, the only description of the suspect's car is that it is light in color. Investigators are going to review the officers' cameras to figure out more information on that suspect's car, but right now we are not sure as to how many people were actually in the suspect's car. For now, we're reporting live. Jeff Nguyen, CBS 2 News.
Jeff, thank you. More breaking news tonight. 4,000 acres burned, 0% containment. A massive brush fire raging right now through Orange County.
Ash from the Holy Fire is already blanketing parts of Riverside County tonight. This is Temescal Valley, where smoke and ash could impact air quality. In fact, aircraft will continue to battle that fire through the night.
That's right, and crews hope to make some progress overnight. The fire started near Holy Jim Canyon in the Cleveland National Forest. And
tonight we have team coverage for you. Garth Kemp is keeping an eye on the conditions. But first, CBS 2 Orange County reporter Stacy Butler is live in Holy Jim Canyon with the very latest. Stacy.
Yeah, Pat and Jeff, you can't even see the flames behind me anymore. The fire has moved so far east and south. And just a short time ago, mandatory evacuations here at Holy Jim Canyon were lifted. But there were some pretty tense moments for locals out here who nearly got trapped by a wall of flame.
We're in the cabin only 5 minutes, but that 5 minutes, the flames had already come up over the hill because we kind of go down the hill like that. They were already coming over the hill, so those cabins are gone for sure.
Tilson Shoemate says when he saw flames outside his Holy Jim cabin around 1:15 today, he and his wife sped out of the canyon. He has no idea if his home is still standing. Flames tore through the area, trapping 2 hikers who had to be airlifted out and injuring 2 firefighters with heat exhaustion. As crews fight their first night of this fire, their biggest concern, flames could jump the ridge on top of Santiago Canyon and make a run toward the communities near Lake Elsinore. But the U.S. Forest Service says their command staff just approved 14 fixed-wing and 8 helicopters, some outfitted with infrared technology to work through the night.
The command staff decided the priority is there. They most likely want to keep that at that ridgeline. They don't want it going into the communities on the other side of Santiago Peak or basically the county main divide. But if you have this much aircraft going all through the night, we should be able to make great progress.
And hopefully that help from the air will help these firefighters out, but it's going to be a long night. They're dealing with high temperatures, low humidity, and this terrain out here that hasn't burned in 40 years. Pat and Jeff, back to you.
Certainly wish those firefighters good luck tonight. Stacey, thank you. Well, fire crews have been dealing with extreme heat as they battle that blaze.
In fact, records fell again today in some places. CBS2's Garth Kemp has more on the conditions. Garth.
Yeah, 78 degrees right now by Trabuco Canyon in the general vicinity. There about 48% humidity. Winds are flat right now, just about 1 mile an hour. 76 degrees right now downtown. It was like 98 out there earlier on today, so temperatures really got out. That was like 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon. So we hit triple digits, and we're going to continue to see the hottest day coming our way tomorrow. But you can see how mild it is out to the east still. Mid-80s out through most of the IE, 77 into Corona, 78 Fullerton, 88 across Van Nuys. It's a little sultry out across the San Fernando Valley. Good evening to you all there. We'll have your complete forecast. We'll talk about the watches and the warnings all coming up in a few minutes. Back to you guys.
Well, in Northern California, the Mendocino Complex fire is now the largest wildfire in state history. It has burned more than 283,000 acres, or roughly 443 square miles in Mendocino and Lake counties, about 2 hours north of San Francisco. 75 homes have been destroyed. The fire is mostly burning in remote areas, but it has forced thousands of people to evacuate.
President Trump is drawing fire tonight for a tweet about the California wildfires. He is making the erroneous claim tonight that too much water is being diverted to the ocean when it could then be used on the fire lines. No fire department has complained about this. The president's tweet referring to the water supply reads in part, can be used for fires, farming, and everything else. Think of California with plenty of water. Nice. Fast federal government approvals.
The president seemed to think that we were intentionally diverting water out to the Pacific. But the reality is the little bit of water that actually reaches the ocean these days is what's left in our rivers after we've diverted the rest of it to the cities and to the farms.
CAL FIRE released a statement saying no, there has been no water supply issues for fighting the fires. And Governor Jerry Brown's office said this does not merit a response. We'll stay with CBS 2 News for continuing coverage of the California wildfires. For updates anytime, just go to our website, cbsla.com.
A senior suspected of killing a Long Beach fire captain has died while in custody. 77-year-old Thomas Kim was awaiting trial for the shooting death of Long Beach fire captain Dave Rosa. And CBS 2's Tom Wade is live in Long Beach with more information. Tom?
And Pat, firefighters wanted Kim to stand trial for what he did. They are sad that he died in custody. They wanted insight, reason for what he did at the senior tower 2 months ago. When Thomas Kim appeared in court back in July, he was in a wheelchair. He looked frail and barely said a word. The 77-year-old who was accused of shooting and killing Long Beach fire captain David Rosa would spend the last few weeks of his life in the jail ward, where he would ultimately succumb to his illness. The sheriff's department would not confirm what Kim was suffering from, but his neighbors say he had cancer, and before the shooting, he was regularly undergoing chemotherapy. After his death was reported today, the Long Beach Fire Department released this statement. Although we're devastated this man will never stand trial for the murder that he committed, our focus remains on protecting the Rosa family and the memory of the many honorable and loving contributions that Captain Rosa made to his family and the community.
I think he got what he deserved.
Noreen Convey lives in the retirement tower where the shooting happened.
I feel better that it's over. There's a closure, not with many, but with us. I mean, it'll always be a reminder.
Captain Rosa was murdered back on June 25th when he came here to Covenant Manor after reports of a fire. Police say shortly after Rosa arrived on scene, Kim shot him and 2 others, a firefighter and an elderly resident. Both survived. Investigators say Kim was in a fight with a neighbor and set off an explosive device as part of a planned attack. And Kim was facing a slew of felony charges, including murder, attempted murder, and arson charges. Reporting live in Long Beach, I'm Tom Waite, CBS 2 News.
Well, happening right now, new U.S. sanctions are officially in effect against Iran. This after President Trump signed an executive order earlier today. A CBS 2 political reporter, Dave Bryan, has the late-breaking details and global reaction tonight.
Yeah,
Dave?
That's right, Jeff. The sanctions went into effect just a couple of hours ago, but they've already triggered worldwide controversy and even riots in Iran. President Trump signed an executive order at Jersey Golf Club to reimpose sanctions on Iran, which were suspended under the Obama-era nuclear deal. The sanctions target Iran's gold and metal industries, its auto sector, and restrict Iran from using U.S. dollars in financial transactions. And as a result, intense anti-government riots have been breaking out across Iran over the last several nights, aimed at the country's leadership and fueled by fears that the new U.S. sanctions will further damage Iran's failing economy.
Our policy is not regime change, but we want to put unprecedented pressure on the government of Iran to change its behavior.
But critics charge by tightening the screws on Iran, the Trump administration is more likely to lead to the downfall of an Iranian leader, President Hassan Rouhani, who has been less hostile to America and who would likely be replaced by some more militant anti-U.S. leadership. European allies also adamantly oppose the U.S. resumption of tougher sanctions.
They fear that if they go along with the Trump administration and Iran then pulls out of the Iran nuclear deal, they fear that means a resumption of the Iranian nuclear program, and therefore there's a war.
Despite heightened hostility, last week President Trump offered up a meeting. Today, Rouhani said negotiations and sanctions can't coexist. And if someone has a knife in the hand and seeks talks, he should first put the knife in his pocket. And this could be just the first round of sanctions on Iran. The plan is for the crackdown to intensify in November unless Iran relents before that. Now, the new sanctions would then shut down or ban any business being conducted with banks in Iran and with the oil industry there as well. Jeff, back to you.
Dave, thank you so much. Well, still to come, a plane falls from the sky in Santa Ana over the weekend. 5 people killed. What we're learning tonight about the victims.
I've had to relive this horrible experience all over again every day.
The scandal surrounding a former USC doctor keeps growing. A dozen new accusers come forward.
And from vandalism to fights, should it stay? Should it go? What a vote tonight means for the future of President Trump's star.
Hi, everybody. I'm Garth Kemp. Get ready. Going to have another hot day tomorrow. We'll show you all the watches and the warnings coming up.
And he hasn't played a game yet for the Lakers, but LeBron James is already making his mark in Hollywood. His new project just ahead.